Hey guys, it's Jeff from Fresh Your Luck. You know, the other day I was cooking a really great meal. I was making my corn and crab chowder, which I strongly recommend you try, by the way. And Banjo, my dog, was just sitting there the entire time at the saddest look on his face, just begging, it looked like, for a little bit of a taste. Although he didn't beg, but I can just see it in his face. He came up really close and everything. And I didn't give him any because he's still a puppy. And you know, I felt like such a jerk. So I told myself, Jeffrey, you're gonna punish yourself now by living up to that name and making jerk chicken. Actually, it wouldn't be punishing myself though, it would actually be rewarding myself because jerk chicken is an absolutely astoundingly flavorful dish. Now, what is jerk chicken? Jerk chicken is a Jamaican dish actually, and well, I'm a Jew making Jamaican food. How funny! And the sauce is going to be one of the most sweet and savory sauces ever. However, there's an incredibly spicy tone that graces the sauce as well. That's what makes it jerk chicken. In my opinion, the jerk part is the spice. But if you like sweet and savory and spicy, this is going to be one of the most amazing dishes ever. No jerking around. And I'm gonna get to it and make it and show you how simple it is. However, with the very first ingredient, I'm actually gonna show you right here with myself because it's super important. And that is going to be the jerk part of our dish, the pepper. Now, what kind of pepper are we going to use? Typically, when you make a jerk chicken, traditionally, there's a specific pepper called a Scotch Bonnet pepper, which is like a Jamaican style pepper, very similar to a habanero pepper. Because the truth is, if you're going to your local supermarket, I wouldn't wager any bets that you're gonna find a Scotch Bonnet pepper. In fact, if you ask if they have one, the people working there might even look at you as if you had 3 heads. Or if you were a Jew making Jamaican food. So you can totally use a habanero pepper if you can't find a Scotch Bonnet pepper. And they look like this. A habanero and a Scotch Bonnet look almost exactly the same. They look pretty much just like this. They're a little bit smaller, a little bit rounder, and usually they can be red, yellow or orange, and green, okay? As far as my experience with a habanero, they don't really make any difference, but actually these are considered Scotch Bonnet peppers, I guess, because look at that, it says on the little label, Jamaica hot pepper. And it's apparently from the USA. So maybe they mean Jamaica Queens? The point of the matter is, a Scotch Bonnet and a habanero are basically exactly the same thing. However, their level of spice is astronomically hot. I am talking super hot. In fact, they're so hot that if you even just rubbed your eye right now just touching the exterior of this thing, it's gonna be a rude awakening. It's gonna be like you went to the Gaiety back in the 80s. And you can look that up on Google. The point of the matter here is that if you enjoy super spicy, a habanero or a Scotch Bonnet is a great way to go, and you would only use one. Do not use more than one. Trust me on this, they're incredibly spicy and they go a long way. In my opinion, they're one notch below a ghost pepper. Just watch the brilliant people who take challenges and bite into one of these habaneros or Scotch Bonnet peppers on YouTube and see the results. You don't want that to happen to you. Believe me, you don't. Unless you're on Fear Factor or something and you can win like $1 million or something, then do it. So, the alternative to this is to use a jalapeno pepper, a good old-fashioned jalapeno, which is still spicy to some. Some people actually run away from it when they see it. They think it's way too spicy. However, I find this to be more of a medium spicy, like a medium hot spicy. So I am actually going to use one jalapeno pepper versus a habanero pepper or a Scotch Bonnet pepper. Now, the choice is totally yours, do what you want, and if you don't like peppers at all or spice, you could leave it out, but then you're not making this chicken much of a jerk. You're making it actually kind of nice, and we want this chicken to be a little bit of a jerk. So if you can handle the spice, definitely go with one of these two. I'm actually going to use the jalapeno because I still think it gives a great spice factor because we're going to put the whole pepper in there, and a Scotch Bonnet or habanero really ups the ante to, like, elevates it. The best way to describe the spice level on a meter scale or elevation scale is if you were taking an elevator to the top of the Chrysler building and met Miss Hannigan up there, you think of a jalapeno pepper. If you were taking it all the way to the top of the Freedom Tower or One World Trade Center, it's gonna be a habanero or a Scotch Bonnet. And again, a Scotch Bonnet, you ain't gonna find it, I'm telling you, in most of your markets. A habanero is what you're gonna find. Or, you know, Jamaica hot peppers from the USA. So I know I belabored my point on peppers because Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. So go for a jalapeno if you want it spicy, and go for a habanero or a Scotch Bonnet if you want to breathe fire like a dragon on Game of Thrones. Okay? But like I said, I'm gonna focus on the jalapeno because I like it like that more than the habanero or a Scotch Bonnet. Let's move on. So I'm gonna take one of these, And then I'm gonna slice the stem off, and then I'm gonna slice it into long quarters, just like this, quarters long ways. Now I'm going to also keep the rib and the seeds in there, which is going to enhance the spice. If you want to, you can easily serrate them out and just pull them out of the pepper, but I'm gonna leave them in. Now, a warning to you, if you don't have magical snapping powers like I have, I know it's so special, I don't know what to tell you, you're gonna slice this up with a knife, so be very careful you don't touch this and then rub your eye or anything of that nature, especially if it's on habanero pepper, because if you do touch your eyes after you've touched the inside of a jalapeno, and especially a habanero or a Scotch bonnet pepper, it's gonna burn something terrible. So be very careful, wash those hands in between, and just avoid the eyes, alright? Moving on to our onion. Speaking of eyes getting all watered up, let's take a yellow onion about this size, relatively small, and then let's coarsely chop it up, just like that. Let's also take 3 scallions and dice it up, followed by 1 lime, juiced. Alright, now let's move on to our food processor. And I said food processor, but you could totally use a blender as well, or a food processor slash blender combo, whatever. It'll all be fine. Just make sure it has enough blade power in there to like chop and puree, okay? Okay, so I'm going to begin by adding 1 8-ounce can of pineapple slices, or pineapple chunks, or crushed pineapple, it doesn't really matter, about the 8-ounce size, okay? And I'll add this into the blender or the food processor along with all of its juices. And then to that, I'm going to add my jalapenos, my onions, the scallion, or green onion, it's the same thing, my lime juice, 4 whole cloves of garlic. You can use about 1.5 tablespoons of crushed garlic if you have that instead, but I am going to use 4 full cloves for this, okay? And obviously, if you're using whole cloves, peel them, and if they have a little edge just like this here, like a little stem, cut that off. It's not a stem, it's like a stub, alright? Get rid of that. Now I'm gonna add in 1/4 cup of a low sodium soy sauce, and I do suggest using low sodium versus full sodium for this, simply because of the flavor and because honestly, it's better for you than having full sodium soy sauce. And say hello to my little bear over here. I'm going to add in about 1 tablespoon of honey. And because honey is so annoying to measure, I simply just eyeball it and I'm just gonna put about 1 tablespoon worth in, and a good generous squeeze is just about that, alright? Now it's time to add in some seasonings. I'm going to add in 1 tablespoon of Chinese 5-spice, which is an important thing to have in my opinion for this marinade. It's sold in most supermarkets, or you can find it in international supermarkets, or it's even online, but I've seen this in so many supermarkets. And I'm adding 1 tablespoon of it. And the other spice that's super key to this is some ground allspice. And this is the stuff that basically smells like Christmas. So basically it's festive, but it goes very well in a jerk sauce. So I'm going to add in 1 teaspoon of ground allspice as opposed to no spice. Okay, now I'm gonna add in 1 teaspoon of ground ginger, 1 teaspoon of white pepper. And this stuff is kind of spicy, but not terribly so. If you don't want it, you can leave it out. You don't have to add the white pepper, but I think it adds wonderful flavor. So I suggest white pepper. Very different from black pepper in the sense where it's just more pungent. And now let's add in 1 teaspoon of dried thyme. And a secret ingredient I like to add to this, not necessary, is some Creole seasoning, specifically Tony Chachere's, but you can also use Cajun seasoning, any kind of Louisiana seasoning, but I really love this stuff for it. And I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of that. It's a lot of spices. And I'll finish my spices off with 1/2 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and finally 1 tablespoon of a dark brown sugar. Now if you only have light brown sugar, that's totally fine too, but use light or dark brown sugar. And that completes all the ingredients for our jerk chicken marinade. Now I know it's a lot of stuff going in there, but I can tell you now, it's all necessary to produce the most amazing, amazing jerk chicken sauce. Alright, let's secure our lid on our blender or food processor and puree it. Okay, and there we go. Now, if you don't have a puree setting on your little food processor, that's fine. You can just pulse it. That's totally fine until it's nice and pureed, alright? Let's take the lid off and get our blade out of there. And there is our lovely, beautiful, aromatic jerk chicken marinade slash sauce. And guys, I'm telling you right now, it's going to be very zesty, even with just the jalapenos. So if you really want it spicy, I mean super, super spicy, then use the habanero or the Scotch bonnet pepper. Or if you don't want to add any spice at all, you don't have to. You can leave the peppers out completely. But honestly, it's not going to be much of a jerk chicken without a little bit of jerk in it. And by that, I mean some pepper. Alright guys, now let's move on to the chicken. I want to use chicken thighs for this, or you can use breasts, but I prefer thighs. And now you can either use boneless, skinless, which I'm going to use, or you can use bone-in, skin-on. Whatever, it doesn't make any difference. It's totally up to you. But whatever you do, take a fork now and just puncture each piece of chicken. And by the way, I'm using about 2 pounds worth. But if you can make more if you want, you can double it. And 2 pounds is going to be about 4 thighs. And just puncture the chicken. Go in relatively deep, because you're going to want our marinade to seep into it when we add it to a bag in a moment. And you can really just focus on doing the top, that's fine. You could flip it over and do the other side too. And honestly, if you guys wanted to double the chicken or have about 8 thighs, which is about 4 pounds of chicken, that's 100% fine too. The fact is I'm probably going to have more than enough sauce, but that's fine by me, because I always like extra sauce, so I can save some and then pour it over some rice or even some pasta sometimes. So now I'm going to take my chicken and place it in a large freezer bag. And in you go, and then wash those hands. And now let's take that wonderful jerk chicken marinade that we've just created, or I should say pulverized in a blender or food processor, and we're going to pour half the amount into the bag with the chicken so it can marinate in there, reserving the other half for a sauce when we cook it in the Instant Pot. And we're looking good here, so I'm going to seal up my bag, make sure all the air is out of it, and then just take the chicken and move it around in the marinade to make sure everything is nice and coated in there. And there we have it, guys. All of my chicken marinating in that amazing jerk chicken sauce slash marinade, which will turn into a sauce when we cook it. And I'm gonna set this in the refrigerator for no less than 4 hours. Even better if you could do it overnight or even 24 hours, which I am going to do. So I'm gonna put this in my fridge, and I'll put my chicken in the fridge as well as my extra marinade, and I'm gonna come back between 4 to 24 hours later. And oh look, it's me and my mom on Big Thunder Mountain in Disneyland Paris. I love that photo so much. And now I'm going to open the fridge. It's been 24 hours, and I'm going to remove both my marinade and the chicken that is marinating in the marinade. Now I'm gonna go to my Instant Pot, and look at how shiny it is, by the way. It's night and day having a dishwasher. And I'm going to now add in 1/4 of a stick or 2 tablespoons of salted butter. Now let's go down to the control panel and hit the saute button and make sure we're on the more or the high setting and give it some heat so that the butter melts and the oil sizzles. And once the butter is melted in the pot, I am now going to take my chicken and lay it inside the butter and let it cook on each side for about a minute, just like let it lightly sear. And there's the 4th piece. And again, I'm just gonna let it sear on each side for about a minute, and some of the marinade will still be on the chicken since I just took it out of the bag. And you'll also notice that once you add the chicken to the butter after a few moments, it's going to significantly simmer down in terms of the sizzle, because the chicken's cold and so is the marinade that encompasses it. So just give it about a minute, and then we're gonna flip each piece of chicken over. Alright, and after about 2 minutes and giving it a little bit of a sear, flip each piece of chicken over. It doesn't have to be perfect, just a little bit is fine. Okay, and give it another 2 minutes. Alright, and after about 2 minutes of the chicken just kind of lightly sauteing in the butter and the marinade, we'll take the remaining amount of marinade from the bag the chicken marinated in, and add it to the pot, as well as the remaining marinade that we had reserved from the fridge that didn't touch the chicken, and just add that on top. And you can just leave it exactly how it is, no need to spread it around, because now we're going to add the lid on top and we're going to pressure cook. Alright, let's secure our lid. Make sure that we're in the sealing position. Now I'll come back down to my control panel and hit the cancel button, and then hit the pressure cook or the manual button depending on your model. And I want to go, guys, on this for 10 minutes at high pressure. And now that we're done cooking, let's perform a quick release. And our pin just dropped, so let's take our lid off. And there is our jerk chicken, looking and smelling fantastic. Alright, now let's focus on the sauce. I want to remove my chicken with some tongs and place it in a serving dish, alright? And set that aside for the time being. Now I want to thicken my sauce up a little bit, and to do that I'm going to create a cornstarch slurry. I'm going to take 1 tablespoon of cornstarch and mix it with 1 tablespoon of water, equal parts, and then stir it around until it gets nice and smooth. It's super important when you're creating a slurry, by the way, to make sure that you create the slurry instead of just dumping cornstarch into a sauce, because the cornstarch will just clump into a ball. Believe me, you have to do this. And it looks like a powdered donut just exploded on my hand, because that's what cornstarch does. It gets everywhere. It kind of likes to get all over the place. So now I want to come down to my control panel and hit the cancel or the keep warm cancel button, depending on your model. And I want to hit the saute button and make sure I'm on the more or the high setting. And once the sauce is bubbling, let's take our cornstarch slurry and immediately stir it in to the bubbling sauce. And now let's kill the heat. And you'll see that it'll have thickened up into a gravy-like consistency almost immediately. And as the bubbles are dying down, I'm gonna add 2 final unconventional, but in my opinion, awesome ingredients. And that's going to be a tablespoon of barbecue sauce, any of your choice, as well as a tablespoon of hoisin sauce. This is stuff that you use in a lot of Chinese dishes, and it can be found in many supermarkets in like the little international aisle or where they sell Chinese ingredients. It's very typical, and I can link where you can get it online as well. And then just stir that up with the sauce in the pot. And now we're going to have our final unbelievable jerk chicken sauce. And it's looking absolutely perfect in terms of consistency and thickness and smell. And we're gonna let it cool for about 3 minutes. And then we're gonna drape it over our chicken. And we're gonna either serve the chicken right away, or we can give it a little bit of a crust on the chicken by throwing it in the oven under the broiler for a moment, or in the barbecue for a quick moment and just like flash grill it, all right? But I'm actually not gonna grill it or broil it. I'm gonna eat it exactly how it is because I love it this way too. And I'm just gonna drape some of my sauce over the chicken. And you're gonna really have plenty of extra sauce, like I said. So if you wanted to double the chicken, by all means, feel free to. And there is our lovely jerk chicken. Perfect for jerks anywhere. And you could even give it a little bit of presentation if you wish by adding that habanero or Scotch bonnet or jalapeno pepper to the middle. Again, this stuff is real spicy. All right, guys, let's dig it and try it out. And I just plated myself some, and look at how beautiful that looks, guys. This is completely without grilling or baking or broiling it at all, just as is, and it's gonna be fork tender. All right, now I'm really gonna try it out. So I'm wearing a different shirt because it's the next day. Like I said, I let it marinate in the fridge for 24 hours, and here is my jerk chicken, and I am so excited to have a wonderful taste of this jerkiness. And here we go. You see, it's fork tender, by the way. I don't even need a knife to cut this. I love thighs for that reason as well. Here we go, a big bite. Oh man, the sauce, like I said, is the most amazing trifecta blend of sweet, savory, and spicy, but because of the jalapeno, it's not overbearingly spicy. There's definitely a kick to your mouth, like right now my tongue is tingling and my lips just a little bit, especially because we left the ribs and the seeds inside the pepper when we cooked. You can always remove the ribs and seeds inside the pepper, it makes it less spicy, but I like it in there. And the chicken is so tender, so juicy. The sauce literally is everything. It's just so full of flavor, and it's actually gonna go amazing over rice as well. So if you have some rice to serve with this chicken, look at this chicken, by the way. Look at how delectable and juicy and perfectly cooked. I am starting to sweat while eating this. I mean, again, the whole purpose of jerk chicken is for it to be spicy, but luckily this is in between. Like I said, I recommend jalapeno peppers versus a Scotch bonnet or a habanero, but if you really want to go the distance, go for the Scotch bonnet or habanero. Well, I think this is perfect as is, and I absolutely am obsessed with the sauce. It's so tangy and spicy at the same time. And you lose weight while eating this recipe because you sweat while you're eating it because there's spice in there. Woo! And you feel the heat. It's like taking the subway in the middle of August. Except it smells great. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy these recipes, check out facebook.com/pressureluckcooking and like that page anytime a new recipe drops. You won't miss it. And speaking of which, all my recipes are at pressureluckcooking.com, and I have a huge catalog of them, and they just keep growing week by week. Check that out. And of course, subscribe to me on YouTube, Pinterest, Instagram, and Twitter at pressureluck. Thank you so much again, guys. And the next time somebody calls you a jerk online, simply respond with a link to this recipe, because it's the best and most passive-aggressive way to get your point across. And the moral of the story is, I ain't faking a Jamaican. And yeah, I'm gonna just eat the sauce directly from the ladle because really, it's that good. Oh, spicy. Woo! But unbelievably good.